again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters. Those were the days with George Mitchell. And what year are we looking at this week, George?
We're really into the 60s, the swinging 60s as they called it. It's 1960, 1961. And it, in many ways, a historic year, but it'll unfold as we talk about it.
Great stuff. All right, well, the pictures are all ready, and I'll hand over to you, George.
All right, well, just to put people with the interest in the year, top of the pops was 2 Elvis songs, Are You Lonesome Tonight? And It's Now or Never. And Chubby Checker was trying to teach you how to twist. So that's where the music was. In pictures, great pictures that year. Psycho, The Apartment, Spartacus, which one of my all-time favourite pictures. Magnificent Seven, and another favourite picture. And Breathless. Real 5 brilliant movies, if anybody's a movie buff. I know I went to see all of them and enjoyed them all. So that's where we are in terms of the 60s. But remember, as I start all of these things, we're here to talk about Newcastle United. Nothing's ever straightforward with Newcastle United, though, is it? I mean, Mitten's marvels, as they called them, because of that goal-scoring prowess the previous 2 seasons. I know my lot and most of the people I knew in the Gallagher corner, the one thing we were sure of is that our team could score goals. But the other thing that we had doubts about is whether they could stop them going in at the other end. And that's what, well, I mean, everybody expected, for example, Len White would probably get 30 goals. Ivor Allchurch would probably weigh in anything between 15 and 20. And George Eastham at the time was starting to score, and everybody thought, well, he'll get 10. So we're clucking of goals, and if you add the odd ones from people like Bobby Mitchell and others in the team, we're looking for a good goals for column. It's what would happen at the other end, which interested people. However, as I keep saying, this is Newcastle United. Before they kicked a ball, there was a major blow, because a couple of weeks before the season started, one of our star players went on strike. George Eastham went on strike, and that's the first few photos of George Eastham, I think, Steve.
Yeah, I've got them here, George.
Yeah. That's him in a Newcastle strip. And the next one should be Arsenal strip. And next one, England, I think. And the last one, Stoke City. They're the teams he played for. Although after Stoke City, he stayed in the Midlands quite a lot and played a lot of non-league football because he enjoyed his football, did George. He went on strike because he was due to resign for Newcastle United. And he didn't want to resign because he'd been tipped off that Arsenal wanted to buy him. And so he was refusing to sign. And Newcastle was saying, well, if you don't sign, we'll keep your registration and you can't play for anybody. And that's where we got the big challenge. He immediately hired a sharp lawyer and a representative who would now be called his agent, I think. And they got involved with the club, and it was all sorts of shenanigans. Actually, on a personal level, I do remember this all kicking off because pre-season, Newcastle get all sorts of requests for sending teams for friendly matches to local clubs to let them make a bit of money on a gate and all this sort of thing. Well, I was amongst a group of people who were going to Teesside to play a second team friendly against the Smoggies. And it was mostly lads that played in the Central League or the A team, the B team, and 1 or 2 juniors like myself. However, we all heard that added to the squad, because he wasn't going to play in the first team, was George Eastham. So that said to me, he either goes on this or he wouldn't get any more money. So he came, and there he was. He got on a bus, and unfortunately, or fortunately, he brought his girlfriend. And immediately, two of the senior staff on the bus were rather unkind to him and his girlfriend, and basically told, she gets off, and if she doesn't get off, you get off, and that's the end of that. And of course, the poor lad was nearly in tears by the time he got off the bus with his girlfriend. But lo and behold, when he got off, there were two guys waiting for him. One was obviously the lawyer with his smart suit and his briefcase, and the other one was a cigar smoking representative who I think would call him his agent now. And they were telling him what to say. Basically, even we could see that on the bus, and so we were set off for this friendly on Teesside, which. I mean, all the gossip was about George Eastham. It wasn't about football at all. So anyway, we went off and we had our friendly, and we won 3-1. But all the way back, everybody was saying, wonder what's happened to George Eastham. Well, what did happen was he stuck out, and his lawyer threatened to take Newcastle United to court, and he ended up going to Arsenal. So when everybody talk about this agent thing and representative thing, well, we started it. It was Newcastle United that started it with George Eastham. Sad because he was starting to play brilliantly. He wasn't just good on the ball. He was starting to score goals, and everybody was looking forward to him playing this season. And as I say, I expected him to score a hatful of goals. So that was how the season started, which wasn't the particularly auspicious way to get your season off to a start. So we commenced with, guess what, a friendly against Racing Paris. We won 3-2. Al Church and White scored, and Bob Stoko scored against Racing Paris. And interestingly, though, it was a friendly. So thanks. I was going to say there's a program there. 30,000 people turned up to this
Wow.
friendly, which is a bloody good crowd. I mean, we're seeing how good the crowds were the other day, and they were good for top class teams. Well, Racing Paris may have been a top class team in those days, but 30,000 is a lot of people to turn up for a match like that. So we got over that, and my first match, real league match, was an away match at Preston, and everybody was waiting with anticipation to see what happened. Well, what happened was we went to Preston, and by 15 minutes we were 2 goals down. Dave Sneddon scored 2 goals to them, and just on half time, Len White scored, and then halfway through the second half, in a space of 2 minutes, Len White scored 2 more, and we won 3-2. We're winning 3-2. And that was a hat trick for Len White. Interestingly, our team hadn't varied much from the previous year. Brian Harvey was in goal. Dick Keith, Alf McMichael, the fullback pairing. Brian right half. Bob Stoko at the centre half. Jackie Bell, ex-friend of mine, and the left-sided midfielder. And the forward line was Terry Marshall, was a winger that Mitten had brought in, Ivor Alchurch, Len White, John McGuigan, and on the left wing, an Irishman that Mitten brought in, Liam Toohey from Shamrock Rovers. And they beat Preston at, as I say, with those 3-2. So everybody thought, well, we're off to a great start. This is fantastic. And hope that it would continue. So the next one was a home game against Fulham. I don't think I've put a program in for this one.
Now I've got two home programs for Fulham. I'm not sure if that was an error or whether they played them twice. Right. So we've got the Fulham.
That's the league game, right? And the other one's the cup game.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So we play the next game. We got Fulham at home, and everybody was anticipating. Only 25,000 in the crowd, because people were still this way and that way about how it would fare. And, well, we slaughtered Fulham, is the only way to describe it. 7-2 with Bobby Gulfillan, a young Scottish winger who Minton had brought in to hopefully at some stage take over from Bobby Mitchell. Duncan Neal, the midfielder who came from Sunderland, got 2. Liam Tui, the Irish left winger, got 2, and Len White got another one. And Fulham's John Key and John Doherty got the 2 consolations for them. As I say, it was a slaughter and a fantastic atmosphere. Although the crowd was 24,000, it wasn't a big crowd by any means for our standards. The team was slightly different to the first game, but he brought Gil Phillin in on the right, and otherwise it was the same team as it went to Preston. Fulham had some notable names in their side. Jimmy Langley, George Cohn, who was right back in the England World Cup squad. Alan Murray is a name that we all know well. And of course, Roy Bentley, an old centre forward in Newcastle United, was on his way out. And Jimmy Hill, he of the big chin, who pushed Coventry club well up the leagues. And Johnny Haynes, of course, their clever midfielder. So a great win. Everybody's really expecting things to go well. And we got another home game against Burnley now. That one was the Fulham one was on a Wednesday, and the Burnley's on the following Saturday. And we expected, well, they're the reigning champions, so it's going to be a hard match. But let's see how it goes. 36,000 in the crowd now, so people are getting the interest back. But I think a lot of that's to do with the fondness people at that time had with Burnley having so many Northeast lads in the team. Unfortunately, it didn't go right for us. We lost 1-0. Jimmy Robson, a lad from Aston, scored the winning goal, and our team was the one that had played in the match against Fulham, and but we got nowhere near scoring a goal. I can remember that this one was a fairly dull game, to be honest, is my memory of it. But Burnley again with John Angus, Jimmy Adamson, Tommy Cummins, Brian Miller, Ian Lawson and Jimmy Robson, all from the northeast between Durham and Northumberland. I mean, it's just incredible. And they were the reigning champions. Harry Potts was their manager. And by now, Norman Smith has been promoted from trainer and coach to assistant manager, which really was just rightful because Norman been there all through the good and the bad, and was a real servant. So we have our game against Burnley, and everybody's ready for the next one. Well, guess what the next one is, Steve? It's a friendly.
Hooray!
A friendly on the Monday night. You know, we've had this big game on the Saturday, and on the Monday night we're playing a friendly against Barcelona, and you know, I beggars belief. You know, other than money is the only thing I can say. However, we it was a good game, and I remember being at the match. It was a good game, which we lost 4-3, and Toy and Al Church and an old friend of mine, Charlie Woods, scored one of the goals as well, and Barcelona scored the 4, and even on a Monday night, they still had a 30,000 crowd, which I think's amazing, you know, on a Monday night after we've had a match on a Saturday, particularly this time of the year when people are still recovering from wartime and all that sort of thing, got pots of money. So we lose that one 4-3. So we go away to Fulham. So that should be the next programme, I think. Yeah, that's Fulham. Everybody's thinking, well, we've just bashed them 7-2. Surely we're going to get something out of this match. But nah, we're Newcastle United, remember. If they're going to upset with us, this is how they're going to do it. And we lost 4-3. It was an absolute disaster. By 20 minutes, we were 2 down. 30 minutes, we were 3 down. And then Gordon Hughes scored pulled one back, and then after half time, Alvarez Church pulled one back, and everybody thought, well, maybe, and Charlie Wood scored another, and we're leading 3-2 now. We're on our way to a victory, yeah. But John Key of Fulham, in the space of 5 minutes just before the end, scored 2 more. So Fulham ran out 4-3 winners. And I think people will start to see how things are developing now. Yes, we're banging them in, but by God, we're letting them in at the other end as well. So the next game is the teams were much the same as the teams that played at St James's Park. The only Charlie Woods was still kept in the first team, and only big change to Fulham was that on the wing they brought in Graham Leggett, the lad they bought from Aberdeen, who was Scottish international winger, who was a tidy little player, and so we're away next to Nottingham Forest. I think should be the next programme.
There we go.
Yeah, and people thought, give it a go. We should be able to have a go at Forest, but no such luck. Forest beat with 2-0. Would hung on right to the 82nd minute, would you believe? And then in the 82nd minute, McDonald scored an own goal, and Gibson scored the second goal. Within a minute, they beat with 2-0. The team was much as played in the other games, except that Mitten had bought another lad from Ireland called Jim Gibson, and he scored a goal. Tidy inside forward or midfielder, as that would call him now, and as I say, right to the 88th minute, and we lost 2 goals in that space of time, which was to say it was depressing is putting it mildly, and we're starting to see that those couple of wins have soon melted into the atmosphere, and to make things worse, we go to another away game at West Bromwich Albion. Now, I don't know if I got a programme for this one.
No, not for that one.
No. Okay. We went to West Brom, and everybody thought, well, we always have good games with West Brom. The two, we always seem to have good football games, to and fro. But there was no to and fro in this time because West Brom spanked with 6-0, absolutely spanked with. And they had a new inside forward, 2 young lads playing in midfield, or inside forwards as I call them. One called Jackson, who scored a hat-trick, and the other one was called David Burnside. Now, I don't know if you can remember him, Steve. David Burnside used to have a sideline as being a ball juggler. And quite often at half-time when West Brom were playing, David Burnside used to go out on the pitch at half-time and play keep you up and keep the ball up and do all sorts of tricks with the ball, long before people did it now. I mean, we're talking about 1960. And he was really clever. And I used to think, well, hold on, he's playing in the team in a game. What the hell do you want him out on the pitch at half time juggling the ball for? Keep him for the second half. But no, he came out and did his juggling act. Well, it didn't do him any harm because he clattered one against us just after half time. So we're 4-0 down. And then an old friend called Bobby Robson in 61 minutes banged in another one. And Derek Kevin, the big blonde England forward, tidy player, Derek, a huge man, but very, very clever feet, and could thump the ball, and he thumped it all right and scored in number 6 on the 70th minute. After that, it was a case of hanging on to make sure it just didn't become a cricket score. So that we're now slipping and sliding, we're way down the league and heading to nowhere at the moment. So the next game is a home game against Manchester City, and everybody thinks, oh, give it a go. This is another team we usually have a good game with, and go for it. Let's have a go at Manchester City. Well, they did give it a go, and everybody thought, well, fantastic. Terry Marshall, the young winger from Ireland, scored an opening goal in the first 10 minutes, and everybody thought, oh, well, we're on my way here, but no such luck. Just before half-time, an old friend of ours who used to play for us called George Hanna scored the equaliser. And then just after half-time, blonde-haired centre-forward that played for Manchester City called Dennis Law scored another one. And Joe Hayes, who was an old timer with Manchester City, played against us in the 55 Cup final. He added the third one, so we lost to Manchester City 3-1. And 25,000 now, and you can see what the fans are thinking after the last run of defeats. And they're saying to the club, well, we don't like this at all. Anyway, we the next match is the return game against West Bromwich Albion, and you think, why the two? The league did this to us occasionally, and anyway, West Bromwich Albion it was, and we thought, well, we're going to have to be on our mettle here, or they're going to turn us over. They've just given us a 6-0, and we're only a week away. In fact, less than a week away from that. But lo and behold, the lads rolled their sleeves up, and we beat West Brom 3-2. Toey scored, the Irish lad, Gordon Hughes, and Len White scored, and Burnside and Smith scored for West Brom. It was 2-1 to West Brom at half-time, but we came back. And I sometimes wonder, when I think about this game, is the biggest change in the team was that suddenly Jimmy Schooler, our captain, came back into the team. And I can't help but wonder if he didn't make the difference, could I say, and G them up on the pitch, and because he went in at his usual place at right defensive midfielder, right wing half, as I would call it, and otherwise the team was fairly predictable. The forward line: Gordon Hughes, Alchurch, White, McGuigan, and Tui, and Bob Stoko in centre half, Keith and McMichael as fullbacks, who were fixtures. So that was an unexpected 3-2 win against West Brom, because having suffered the 6-0 defeat, I think the people's thoughts were that we were going to struggle to get anything out of that match. The next game is an away match at Arsenal, and I think this should be an Arsenal programme there somewhere.
There we go, George.
Thank you. And we thought, well, it's a big ask because Arsenal are playing well. Can we at least get something out of the game? But no such luck. Arsenal thrashed for 5-0. Clapton heard 3, and Strong the 5th one. I mean, we were never in it. To be honest, we were lucky to get the half time at 1-0. And as soon as the second half started, Arsenal just tore apart, and it ended 5-0. It was disappointing, but more than disappointing. By now, we're bumping along the bottom. We're swapping places between bottom and second bottom, and on a good day when we have a win, up to third bottom. But we're struggling by day by day, game by game. Arsenal's team is very predictable. Jack Kelsey, the Welsh goalkeeper, Vic Groves, a well-known England player, at Jimmy Bloomfield as well, Jackie Henderson, who played for Scotland, David Hurd, who played for England, and Danny Clapton, and Jeff Strong was just coming into the Arsenal team then. Quite a strong forward. And 35,000 at Highbury for our game, which is a decent crowd. But as I say, we're now starting to bump along at the wrong end of the league. After Arsenal, we have got to home game against Leicester City. Now, Leicester City weren't playing particularly well. And indeed, when I talk about the teams bumping along between bottom, second bottom and third bottom, one of those teams was Leicester. So we thought, well, yeah, we've got to have a chance to get something against these. Let's have a go. Well, have a go or not, we lost 3-1, having gone in lead through John McGuigan in less than 10 minutes. And then Ken Leake scored 2 before half-time. And then immediately after half-time, Albert Cheeseborough, tidy little midfield player that played for them, scored the third one. Leicester's goalkeeper on the day is quite a famous name, Gordon Banks. Frank McClintock was right-sided midfield. Colin Appleton was left-sided midfield. He became a well-known manager and a well-known manager of a team that every time the Cubs played, we get reminded who we managed. And I'm not going to say that name because it makes me cry nearly. Hereford. Never mind, I said it quick. Jimmy Walsh, a tidy player. Albert Cheeseborough was a tiny tot, one of the smallest footballers in the league, but what a great player, what a skillful player. And then Ken Leake was on as outside left. And actually later in his career, when he was on his way out, as usual, Newcastle United tried to buy Ken Leake, would you believe, when his days were numbered. However, 21,000 at the crowd now. So the message is getting across that we're not doing very well, and certainly didn't do very well against Leicester. Then we come to the Wednesday after that Saturday match. Guess what, Steve?
A friendly.
A second friendly against Wraith in Paris, would you believe?
Wow.
I mean, it just beggars belief. We win 2-1 rather. Mitchell and White score the goals, and a young man called Hullet scored it. It can't be our Hullet, but I often wonder when I see this whether or not he's a relative of him, because it's spelt exactly the same way. And he scored theirs from a penalty. But I've dug, I can't see any other reason than it being a friendly. As though there was some tournament between Newcastle and Paris. Why have 2 games against Wraith and Paris? Anyway, we won 2-1 on the Wednesday. And on the Saturday, we were at home to Cardiff City. And Cardiff City were another one of the teams that were joining us, bumping along the bottom of the league at that time. And we really, really felt, certainly the fans felt, and you could guess from the press that Mitten felt that this was a must-win game. It was what we these days call a 6-pointer, because they were as bad, if not worse than us. And if we couldn't get anything out of this game, then we really were in trouble. Well, lo and behold, they come up trumps, and we beat Cardiff 5-0. However, 17,000 at St James's on that day. Wow. I wasn't at that particular match because I was away playing for one of the other teams. It must have been like a bloody graveyard. 17,000 at St James's is nothing. Anyway, Mitten brought George Luke back into the team, having cast them away for a while. And Len White, he scored 2. Len White scored. Bobby Mitchell scored. And then Len White scored a second. So 5-0 against Cardiff City. It's interesting, the team was Harvey still, but fullbacks Keith McMichael, Duncan Neal at right half-back, George Heslett, an old friend of mine at centre-half, who eventually went on to Manchester City, and George Luke, who was a left winger, played left side defensive midfield, and yet he scored 2 goals from midfield. I don't know what Mitten seed in George Luke in that position, but that was what he tried, and it paid off. I mean, we won 5-0, and as I say, brought Bobby Mitchell back, who was back from injury, and he added a goal. Cardiff were, as I say, as bad, if not worse than us. And they really didn't have anybody of any merit. Graham Weather, centre-back, was a Welsh international. And then there was a little Welshman called Derek Tapscott, who they'd got from Arsenal a couple of weeks before this, and he was a well-known player. But Cardiff were as bad as it seems, because, as I say, they were only thing they were vying for with us was who was going to be bottom and who was going to be second bottom. So we got Cardiff out of the way, and we go to the away match to Aston Villa. So it might be an Aston Villa programme there, Steve.
No, I haven't. It's Manchester United I've got, and then Chelsea.
Oh wow, they're way down the list. Never mind. Okay. Well, we went away to Aston Villa, and we went with little hope, because having had the sort of disappointments in previous away games. Although we'd beaten Cardiff, we realized Aston Villa were a different kettle of fish. They weren't bumping along the bottom; they were up in the middle and pushing towards the top. So we went to Aston Villa, and we lost 2-0. And Alan Wiley and Vic Crow scored their 2 goals, one in each half, and we never really got into the game. The team was slightly changed at right back. It wasn't Dick Keith, it was Bill McKinney, the local lad. And instead of having the young Irish lad in the team, Marshall, Charlie Mitten decided to play his own son, John Mitten, inside left midfield, as we'd call it these days, to Bobby Mitchell. But to no avail, we lost 2-0 and were never really in the game. 25,000 at Villa Park for that match. And to say it was disappointing is putting it mildly. The next game is a home game. It's the first ever League Cup game. And we were drawn against Colchester United. And everybody thought, whoa, away. Surely this is a chance to advance in this competition against a club which is 2 leagues below and not playing very well in that league either. They were nearly the bottom of the third division. Well, lo and behold, Newcastle didn't let us down, did they? They lost 4-1 to Colchester United at home in the very first League Cup match we have. So disappointments in the League Cup aren't new, and this was the very first one. Duncan Neal scored our goal, but Colchester just eat were alive. I mean, it was on a Monday night, and I can remember because I was there, and they were 3 up by half time, and to rub salt into the wound, they added another one on 88 minutes just to make it 4-1, and Duncan Neal's was a half time goal. So say that was disappointing, putting it mildly. The crowd by now had come up a little bit though, because new competition, people thinking we might get somewhere. Well, we ended up with 23,500 in the crowd, and Colchester. When I look at that team, that they had lots of ex-Wolves players in the team. Jeff Sidebottom was their goalkeeper. Bill Slater was one of the midfielders, defensive midfielders. Ron Flowers, both of whom played for England a long time. Peter Broadbent also played for England. And Norman Dealey was the centre forward, and he also played for Wolves. So I don't know what the... yes, I do know what the... Sorry, we are playing Colchester, yeah. Anyway, it's... to say disappointing, putting it mildly, so we headed to the next home game, which was on a Saturday against Wolves, and this was a game which we weren't, even the diehards like myself and our lot weren't really expecting anything out of this game. However, they rolled our sleeves up and had a real go, and we drew 4-4 with Wolves, which was no mean feat because they weren't playing badly at the time, and Bobby Mitchell scored 2, Gordon Hughes, and then Len White, and that's just after half time. We were 4-0 up, and then lo and behold, Peter Broadbent scores 2 for them. Ted Farmer scores, then Jimmy Murray. And then we're hanging on in the last 5 minutes to get anything out of this game, which we were leading 4-0. So to say we were gobsmacked and disappointed is just putting it mildly. And Wolves, as I said, came back with a bang and fought hard. 24,000 still in the crowd for this match, and that, considering what had gone before, that's not too bad. We then have an away game to Manchester United. I don't know if I've got the Manchester program there. Yes, yeah. And people are hoping above hope that we don't at least get a shellacking, because that was on the cards. But they didn't too badly. They rolled their sleeves up and had a go. And we were 1-0 down at half time to a Morris Setter's goal. And then a Dawson goal made it 2-0. And then Gordon Hughes scored one on 56 minutes. So it was 2-1. And then a young man by the name of Nobby Stiles scored the 3rd goal for Manchester United. And he made it 3-1. And right on the death, Bob Stokoe scored a header from a corner to make it 3-2. So people thought, well, at least they've given it a go. Personal thing about Nobby Stiles, about 1957, when I was signed just before I signed for Newcastle, or when I signed for Newcastle, and I was playing for Wallsend Boys in the English School Shield. We played Manchester Boys, and the Manchester Boys captain was Nobby Stiles. And here he is in Manchester United's first team, scoring a goal against Newcastle United, which was quite something for me personally. The crowd was at Manchester was 55,000, which you'd expect. But as I say, still a defeat and a sad one for us. So the next game is a home game at St James's Park against Tottenham Hotspur. And everybody's hoping above hopes that we might get something out of the game, at least a draw. But we were really... Newcastle performed to plan and disappointed everybody. We got beat 4-3. And I have to say, we were looking for it to be 4-3 because Spurs ran the legs off, really. It was only the sheer brilliance of Len White, with 2 beautiful individual goals, dribbles from the halfway line and slotting it past the goalkeeper that even give us a sniff in this game. And then just before the end, Gordon Hughes scored a final consolation goals. Goal scorers for Tottenham: Maurice Norman, Cliff Jones, John White, Bobby Smith, all international players of renown at that time. And of course, little did we know, this was the Tottenham team that was going to go on to win the double. So they were a good team. So to form like that was interesting. The very fact that this Tottenham team was playing so well, the crowd was 51,000. Now think of the dross that's gone before, down to 17,000, and because the top team in the league that's knocking everybody over. I've always contended, and I still contend, that yes, Geordies love Newcastle United to death, but they love football as well.
Yeah,
and I think I think everybody thought that let's go and have a look at this team because they're going to be something special. Because we're knocking everybody over 5-6-0. It was the end of season goal tally was 115, something like that. I mean, just unbelievable, even these days. And that team was had Ron Henry, Maurice Norman, Danny Blanchflower, John White, Dave Mackay, the iron hard tackling full midfielder, Les Allen, Terry Dyson, Bobby Smith, the centre forward, and Cliff Jones, all internationals and playing the socks off for Tottenham. So to get to 4-3, we were very fortunate. And the 3 to us, as I said, really revolved around the absolute brilliance of Len White, who was able to really give it a go. So we get over Tottenham and face an away trip to Chelsea in London. I think there's a programme cover there for Chelsea. Yeah, that's us. And never very confident about trips to London, but we thought, well, we've given Tottenham a fright. Let's see if we can give Chelsea a fright. Well, we did until half time. Len White scored 2 before half time, and we were 2-1 up. Tyndall scored 1. And then after half time, Chelsea just tore up pieces. Tyndall completed a hat trick, and Braybrook, who was an England winger, scored the 4. So we lost to Chelsea 4-3 and 4-2 rather. And to say it was disappointing was putting it mildly, but not unexpected. Not unexpected, I have to say. Our next game is a home game against Blackpool, and everybody thinks, well, Blackpool are kicking about the bottom of the league like we are. This is another 6-pointer. If we could just win this match, perhaps we can actually get off the bottom of the league. And so Blackpool came to St James's, and 27,000 crowd, which, considering what's gone before, isn't too bad. And lo and behold, we turned Blackpool over. We beat them 4-3. And the team is almost did the same over this period, with Bill McKinney still at right back, and Jimmy Schooler back in his rightful position, and Bob Stokoe back, and Len White and Bobby Mitchell back in the forward line. So we beat Blackpool 4-3. 2 goals to Duncan Neal, the right-sided midfielder, and 2 goals to Len White, who's starting to get his card mark now. He really is checking up the goals for us, but without much assistance from the people behind him. Blackpool's goals were by Ray Charnley, Ray Parry, and Dave Dury, three international players that played for Blackpool. And lo and behold, for once, going to see a Blackpool match at St James's, Stanley Matthews actually played. He actually was in the team. And it was interesting being in the Gallagher corner, because I've told you before, he has this reputation of not liking the Gallagher because he felt the fans were too close. And the fans this day, it was getting towards the end of the match. We were winning 4-3, and he came over to the left side to the Gallagher corner to take an in-swinging corner. And just as he was placing the ball, a wag in the crowd said, "If you think this is bad, Stan, your horse has lost at Gosforth as well." He had a racehorse, and it had been running at Gosforth, and it actually had lost its race. So a wag in the crowd knew that and given the message while he was taking a corner, which wouldn't persuade him to come back to St James's, I don't think. But anyway, 4-3 to Blackpool. Everybody thought, well, 27,000 there, and everybody's thinking, well, is this the start of something good? Are we getting a revival? Is it? Anyway, we're away to Everton next, and we're hoping above hopes, because we always have a good game against Everton, that we might get something out of it. Well, sadly, our hopes were dashed because Everton thrashed for 5-0. I mean, the goals are rattling in now against us as well as forward, and we. Bobby Collins, the little midfielder, Scottish midfielder, international midfielder, scored 3. Derek Wignall, a centre forward who played for Forest and went to Everton, scored for them, and Roy Vernon, another Welsh national, scored for them as well. So 5-0, and 41,000 at Everton that day, which is nice, but not nice for us when they were given with the thrashing that they did. So we're now, as I say, we're now back bumping along the bottom between us and Cardiff and one or two others. And so we got a home game against Blackburn Rovers, and everybody's got their fingers crossed because they're not playing very well either. And yet another 6-pointer, as we would say here. And in the press, Mitten was saying he thought we could get something out of this game. Well, we did. We beat Blackburn 3-1. 2 goals from Len White, 1 from Bobby Mitchell, and Blackburn's goal scored by a Scottish winger, McLeod, who played for Scotland in the World Cup in Chile. And everybody went home reasonably happy that we'd won that match because of where we were. 22,600 in the crowd isn't brilliant, but at least it's hanging on in there, and in the hope that this is the beginning of something new, and that things might improve. Well, the next game is an away game to Bolton Wanderers. Now, I think there might be a Bolton programme there.
Yes.
Yeah. And we hope above hopes that we might, having done Blackburn over, that it might give with the impetus to get something at Bolton. Well, we were disappointed because Bolton beat with 2-1. And we got off to a great start. Len White scored in the first minute. I mean, almost from the kickoff, he went up the field and dribbled up the field and slotted the ball in. And everybody thought, wow, is this it? But in fact, it didn't happen like that. We stayed 1-0 at half time. Then Edwards and Stevens scored 2 goals for Bolton, and we lost 2-1. Interestingly, I'm complaining about 17,000 at St James's Park, and Bolton weren't playing very well then either. 12,900 in Burnden Park for this match. I mean, 12,900 at St James's would be, well, as I said, it'd be like a graveyard. It was horrible. Anyway, we lost 2-1, and on we press. The next game is a home game against West Ham, and we hope that we get something out of this game because West Ham aren't playing particularly well. 20,000 in the ground, which again is very, very poor. But we got off to a flying start thanks to Len White. Scores in 5 minutes. And just when we think it's going our way, Musgrove for West Ham scores in 6 minutes. And then Alf Michael scores an own goal on 20 minutes. And then Dunmore scores a goal 55 minutes. And then Billy Bonds scores a penalty on 62 minutes. And Dick, the hard-nosed fullback, scores on 70 minutes. And we think 5-1 against West Ham, for God's sake. This is dreadful. And even in a crowd of 20,000, you can see people making their way home, even though there's another 20 minutes to go. And then suddenly on 78 minutes, John McGuigan scores a scorcher, the best goal he scored for Newcastle. A real drive from the left wing, and it became 5-2. And then lo and behold, Len White scores another one. So we're 5-3. 84 minutes, and Jackie Bell scores a screamer from deep midfield on 84 minutes. And we're thinking 5-4, wow, what a fight back. And then to cap it all, Bobby Mitchell, 87 minutes, he scores and levels at 5-5. Well, I mean, the sigh of relief among the crowd was palpable. They couldn't believe that they'd seen what they'd seen. And interestingly enough, all the 10-minute flag people went home and missed half the bloody goals. The 10-minute flag came down and they all started a trip away for their buses. Well, they missed half the goals. they could have stayed and saw the rest if they only wished. But 5-5 was West Ham, and we thought, well, at least they give it a go. At least they're trying. And we move on to another home game, and it's the return game against Preston North End. And we thought, well, we certainly should certainly turn them over before, but it was a absolutely miserable game, 0-0, and it was that kind of 0-0. 21,000 in the crowd, and you could hear the groans when the teams went off at the end. It was such a miserable draw. The team was predictable: Harvey, Dick Keith, Matt Michael, Duncan Neal, Bob Stoko, Jackie Bell, Gordon Hughes, Charlie Woods, Len White, and inside playing midfield on the left side was a young man called Albert Scanlon, who Mitten had just bought from Manchester United. Preston played the usual team with people like Cunningham, the Scottish fullback, and Tommy Thompson, a Geordie who played at fullback. And then on the wing, a young man by the name of Peter Thompson made his debut. Now, Peter Thompson went to Liverpool and became a famous England winger. Well, I know Peter Thompson from my school days because when I went to play against Cumberland at Carlisle at Brunton Park, Peter Thompson was my direct opposition. He was on the right wing and I was left back for Northumberland. And we had a good game. We beat Cumberland 3-0. But that was the same Peter Thompson. And I just find it interesting that lads I actually played against are now starting to appear in the first team and getting contracts and this sort of thing. However, by now, in terms of my own position, I've had my first knee injury and it's not a good one, but never mind. But seeing Peter Thompson's name just brought it all back there for a second. The next game we went to was Birmingham City, home to Birmingham City, and sorry.
I put the program up because I thought you were going to say it was the away game, but it's not. It's the home game. You said.
Sorry, no. Yes, this is the bloody FA. This is the home game, and the next game's the away game. Would you believe?
All right. Okay.
All right. So this is the Christmas games where we get too close together. You know, this is the home games on the Saturday the 24th, and we drew 2-2 with Birmingham. Now Birmingham, we needed to get something out of Birmingham because they were like us, struggling along the bottom and not doing very well. Scanlon and Mitchell scored in the 46th and 66th minute. We nearly gave it away. When Neil and Helliwell scored for Birmingham in the 2 goals in the 74th, 75th minute, which start people to get a bit of a sweat on, you can imagine. Because it's a Christmas game, the crowd's up a bit to 25,000. But a game we nearly gave away. People went home disappointed. So on the Monday, which is the 26th of December, which is my birthday, we went away to Birmingham. And you know, how the FA thinks that getting fans to go between Newcastle and Birmingham over 2 days over Christmas was a good idea. I'm not sure, but never mind, that's what they did. And we went to Birmingham in the hope that we might do something there. But lo and behold, we didn't. We were 1-0 down at half-time from a Bloomfield goal. And then Halliwell, the ex-Sunderland player, made it 2-0. And then just before the middle of the second half, Charlie Woods made it 2-1. And that's how it stayed. 30,000 at Birmingham that day. But we're now in dire straits because we're starting to lose to people who we should really be beating. We shouldn't be losing to these people. It's just one catastrophe after another at the moment. And then the next game is an away game against Burnley. And I don't know if there's a Burnley programme there, Steve.
There is.
Yeah, there is. Good. And as I've said before, we always hoped to have good games against Burnley, and we enjoyed games against Burnley. So we hope, well, maybe this time we'll end up with a result. Well, we ended with a result, all right. We got thrashed 5-3. And Hughes scored 2 and Len White scored our goals. But when I look at the timing of the goals, by 40 minutes, we were 3-1 up at Burnley. But by 51 minutes, we're 5-3 down. I mean, it's just disastrous is the only way to describe it. And for Burnley, 25,000 in the crowd, which for Turf was not a bad crowd. So we now get excited because we're coming to the FA Cup, and we've got FA Cup match against Fulham. Now, I don't know if that's in the right order now.
No.
All right. Well, it's a home match against Fulham.
I do have another programme, I think, which was towards the end, but I'll have to find it.
No, don't
carry
worry.
on, George.
I'll just carry on. We're at home to Fulham in the third round, and you could feel the excitement because it's the FA Cup. You know what it's like being a Newcastle fan. Surely we might get something out of the cup, everybody was saying. And so Fulham came, and lo and behold, we thrashed them 5-0. Yes, they're only a second division team, but that doesn't matter. They were a good team at the time and playing well, look like they're going to get promoted. And bear in mind what happened against Colchester in the bloody League Cup. Nobody could be sure would win anything in the Cups. But we beat them 5-0. Duncan Neal scored a hat-trick from midfield. Ivor Altchurch scored, and Charlie Woods scored the other one. We were 4-0 up at half-time. And the last goal from Charlie Woods came just before the end. Now, 37,000 at that game. Remember, we've been struggling to get 20,000, 17,000, and suddenly, because it's the FA Cup, we're back up to 36,000, and we're turning a good display at 5-0. So we're everybody's got a cup run on their minds now after one good result. The next game is the following Saturday. There's a home game against Nottingham Forest. And we think, well, perhaps on the back of a 5-0 win in the cup, we might do something against Nottingham Forest. And, well, we got a draw, a 2-2 draw. 26,000 at the game. But again, 23 minutes, we're 2-0 up. Woods and White have scored their goals. And then middle of the second half, Quigley scores. And then on 85 minutes, a bloke called Cobb that played for Nottingham Forest equalised. And the groan when that went in was to say the least one of the deepest groans I've heard around St James's Park. But that was it. We were pulled back to 2-2 when we should have waltzed away with it. We should have. That was a game we should have won, and as Forest weren't playing particularly brilliant, it felt like a loss, not a draw. We then the next Saturday were away to Manchester City, we're old cup challengers, and everybody. I know we always liked a challenge with Manchester City. We thought at least you'd get a game at Manchester City, and we hoped that we would give them a game. Well, lo and behold, we did. We drew 3-3, which was remarkable considering our form. White scored, and then Manchester City took over. Hayes scored in 55, Barlow scored in 51, and then that horrible blonde centre forward called Dennis Law, who was the terror of the First Division and then the Premiership later on, scored a third, and we thought, well, we're in for 3-1 here. But lo and behold, just after Law scored, Ivor Alchurch scored a screamer from the edge of the penalty area. And on 82 minutes, Charlie Woods slid in an equaliser from a corner. So we ended up with a 3-3, which was, as I say, not expected, but hoped for. Hoped for, I think, is what I'd say. And 19,000 odd at Main Road that day, which isn't a huge crowd for that ground either. But nonetheless, we felt that they'd accomplished something. So we're now running along to the next game, which is another home game, but it's another cup tie. It's the fourth round of the cup, and it's against Stockport County. And you think, well, surely we're going to get something out of this game. And they didn't disappoint. We did. And again, because it's the cup, bear in mind the previous crowds at home, 49,000 for Stockport County, because it's the fourth round of the FA Cup. And it just, for me, is an indicator of how, because of our wins in the 50s, how the FA Cup suddenly becomes such a draw for the supporters of Newcastle. And as I say, considering the fact we'd been down to 17,000, to get 49,000 against a team from the bottom division was quite something. And we beat them 4-0. Charlie Wood scored 2, then White scored, and Ivor Alchurch scored the 4th. So we thought, well, we're really on a cup run now. You could hear the buzz in the crowd, and certainly couldn't the Gallagher corner about where we're going to go with this. This is going to be special. So the next game is a home game against Arsenal, and we didn't anticipate anything because they were playing supremely well, and we weren't playing particularly well, as has been obvious. And we got a 3-3 draw, much to everybody's surprise. Scanlon, Hughes, and White score our goals. But again, we were 3-1 in the lead until 55th minute. And then a young man by the name of George Eastham, who we've just sold to Arsenal, clattered in a couple, and we're dragged back to 3-3. So another 2 points down the pan, as it were. The next game is the away game at Leicester. I don't know if I've got the Leicester programme there, Steve.
No,
right.
Oh, yes, okay. I've got it. There it is.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. So we hope and above hopes that because of Leicester's as bad, if not worse than we are, that surely we'll get something at Leicester. Well, no such luck. We got thrashed 5-3, and the writing's on the wall now. I mean, everybody knows what's coming later on, but hope above hopes that it doesn't. Alchurch scored, Len White 2, and Leicester scored King 2 penalties. Known goal by George Dalton, one of my old school friends who was in our team, and that day Albert Cheeseborough, and then Ken Leake scored the fifth one just to rub it in. Bill McKinney was right back. George Dalton made his first appearance at left back, and the young man by the name of John McGrath came into the team. That bought him from Bury, exchanged for Bob Stokoe. Bob Stokoe went to be Bury's player manager, and John McGrath came back the other way as a young centre half and became something of a folk hero on Tyneside, really. So that was a nice one. But apart from that, the team was much as wood, except that Albert Scal was now playing on the left wing where he played for Manchester United. But they beat with 5-3 soundly. We didn't even get it in the game, really. And again, it was the brilliance of Len White that even got anywhere near with his goals, really. So we get to Leicester City and we think, well, next match is a cup match, fifth round of the FA Cup, and we drew Stoke City. Well, surely we can make progress against Stoke City. They weren't playing particularly well, and they weren't in our division. Thanks, Steve. I'd forgotten the programme was there. And they did. They turned up trumps, and we won 3-1. Scandal, Altchurch and McKinney. And King scored the last minute for Stoke. And again, 47,000 at this match, because it's the fifth round of the FA Cup. I mean, Stoke weren't a particularly brilliant side, but still the attraction of the Cup brought the fans in. 47,000 when you consider what's been happening before. It's quite remarkable. So we get the Cup match out the way, and we're away to Cardiff City. Now, this is a game we feel we must win, because Cardiff are bounce along the bottom with us. So this is, as I've said more than once, one of the 6 pointers in the programme, and we really just let ourselves down. We lost 3-2 in the game, and but it's interesting. Cardiff were 2 up by half time. Just after half time, Altchurch and White made it 2-2. And then lo and behold, the centre forward Walsh clattered in a one just before the end, and we ended up losing 3-2. So to say that's disappointing is putting it mildly, because we really needed to win that game, or at least that was the view of most people in the crowd. Next game is a home game against Aston Villa, and by now they have lost a few games, so they're catchable if we can win these games. And we beat Aston Villa 2-1, and the hero is Len White. He scores 2 goals, brilliant goals. I remember I was at that game because I wasn't playing in the team at the time, and McParland, Irish winger that played for Aston Villa, quite a famous player, scored their goal. 21,000 now at the league game. See, the difference between the cup and the league is just ridiculous. I mean, 20,000 different. So we get a victory at least. So we're now second bottom. We're not actually bottom, and everybody's getting excited because the next game is the 6th round of the FA Cup against Sheffield United. Now, Sheffield United, second division team, playing well and look like they're going to get promoted. But lo and behold, playing so well that they thrash us 3-1 at St James's Park. They were 3-0 up at half time. That's how bad it was. And McGuigan scored a consolation towards the end of the game. 55,000 at that game, Steve. 55,000. Wow. Where the previous week, the league match was only 21,000. The magic of the cup this year, well, certainly is the magic of the cup for Newcastle fans. And say it's disappointing is putting it mildly. So we move on to our next game, which is an away game at Wolves. And we wanted to make a good show of ourselves, but no such luck. 2-1 defeat. Altchurch scores. Broadbent and Murray scored for Wolves. Bearing in mind, Altchurch scores in the first minute. I mean, we're in the lead and lose yet another lead. 25,000 at Wolves. So we move on to the next game, which is a home game against Manchester United. And we aren't expecting anything out of this game, to put it mildly. But lo and behold, they roll their sleeves up and give a good account of themselves and get a 1-1 draw. Bobby Charlton puts Manchester United ahead in 4 minutes. And then on 8 minutes, the ex-Manchester winger that's playing for Russ Albert-Scanton scores the equaliser. The crowd's now 29,000, which I think owes more to Manchester United being there than anything else. As I say, at least it was another point in the towards the battle against relegation. because that's where we are. We're really right down on the bottom. Next match is an away match at Tottenham, and everybody thinks, well, this is going to be a walkover, because Tottenham are now top of the league and they're beating everybody out of sight. Well, guess what? Typical Newcastle, we go to White Hart Lane and we win 2-1. We win 2-1. Nobody in their right mind would have predicted that score. Tottenham went in the lead just before half-time, and then middle of the second half, Alchurch and Scanlon scored within the space of 5 minutes, and we won 2-1. 48,000 at White Hart Lane, but that must have been a disappointment to them, because I'm sure they would have turned up expecting to see Newcastle get thrashed. So next week we're back at home to Chelsea, and our team by now is staying fairly solid and predictable in terms of who's in the team, but not doing very much good. The next one, we're at home to Chelsea, and having the confidence of a 2-1 win at Spurs, everybody thinks, well, surely we're going to get something out of this. Well, we did. We got a 6-1 thrashing. That's what we got out of it. Chelsea absolutely marmalised us. Tyndall scored 2, and then a young man called Jimmy Greaves scored 4. 57, 68, 75 and 80 minutes. I mean, just unbelievable. Bearing in mind, he's only 18 years of age at that time. And Duncan Neal at the end, 87 minutes, managed to get a consolation. So that's 6-1 against Sheffield Wednesday. Against Chelsea, rather. And very quickly after that, on the following Friday, we've got a home game against Sheffield Wednesday, who again they're not knocking breaking eggs with sticks. They're not very good. And we think, well, surely, come on, let's get 6 pointer here. Well, we don't. We get beat 1-0 by Sheffield Wednesday. And I don't know what it was about the whether it was because it was the Easter or what, I don't know. 42,000 at this game. And I for the life of me, why only 28,000 a few days before, less than a week before for Chelsea, and 42,000 for Sheffield Wednesday. Whether they were just trying to G them up to see if they get them out of relegation or not, I don't know. But we lost 1-0 and let everybody down, of course. The next game is an away game to West Ham. And look at the price of the programme, 6 pence. Chelsea's 6 pence, Arsenal's 6 pence. When everybody north of Watford is 3 pence. I don't understand that, but never mind. So we're away to West Ham. We think, well, they're playing well, and we think, well, we're going to have another 5-5 draw with them up here. Who knows? Maybe we'll get something. Well, we did. We got not a 5-5 draw, but a 1-1 draw. Albert Scanlon put us in the lead to equalise by Musgrove. 17,000 at West Ham. And there's a slight change in our team. There's a goalkeeper called Dave Hollins in the team now. Charlie Mitten's transferred poor Ronnie Simpson, the little goalkeeper he didn't particularly like, and he brought Dave Hollins in, who again became a bit of a folk hero on Tyneside, I think. Bill McKinney, John McGraw's in the team, Alf McMichael, and the rest predictable. Gordon Hughes, John McGuigan, Albert Scanlon playing up the middle now, John McGuigan and Bobby Mitchell. And 42,000, as I say. I still, for the life of me, don't know why we had 42,000 for that game when the other games were barely attracting a crowd at all. So we skate on to our next game, which is against... that's out of kilter, but never mind.
Okay, well, I'll run the adverts now. Just a big thank you to our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead, NE8 4BQ is where you can find them, or give them a ring, 01914782730. Website www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks also to Garda Healing Dispensaries, CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists, www.thegohd.com. And thanks to Mr. Vicky's at Handmade Sauces in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk or 01768 210 102. Thanks to Away Day Clothing and thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walton, Newcastle. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the NUFC Matters badge in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. Don't forget we are available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify and the rest. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show has finished on YouTube. And if you want to join, click join underneath the video. Or you can go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and you can get a pen, a cup, and a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also use this QR code on your smartphone to get there a little bit quicker. If you are already a subscriber, we do send out a sticker, an NUFC Matters car sticker. So just email John at nufcmatters.com to get that. We also support the food bank on the show, NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. The matchday booker is virtual. Make sure you make a donation in there when you can. And that wraps up the adverts for this week. So back with you, George, to finish off this season.
And my thanks to the sponsors as well. That's how we get to do this. So thank you. So our next game is a home game against Everton. And bearing in mind what happened at Goodison Park, we're not overconfident that we're going to get anything out of this. Well, we didn't. We lost 4-0. They absolutely thrashed us. And the architect of the thrashing was none other than Billy Bingham, the Irish Macam winger, who tore us apart. And we lost 4-0. The next, I'm trying to think. Everton introduced a young midfielder called Jimmy Gabriel, who was to become a very famous player and a top player for Scotland as an inside forward. And we got the same team with Dave Holland still in goal. Blackpool away is the next one. And we think, well, they're just above where we are. If we could get 2 points here, we're in with a shout. But lo and behold, we didn't get 2 points at all. Blackpool beat us 2-1. Ray Parry and Ray Charnley scored the goals, and Charlie Woods scored our consolation goal. But the irony is another game where we were in the lead and we couldn't hold on to the lead. And 2 goals almost immediately after we scored sent us packing with a 2-1 loss. And by then, the writing's on the wall. We know we're down. That's it. That's where we are. So the Gallagher corner is a miserable corner at this time. Next game's at home against Bolton, and very predictably, 18,000 in the crowd, and typical Newcastle. They play as though it's a cup final. They beat Bolton 4-1. It could have been 10-1. They were so much on top. Keith scored, McKinney, the 2 fullbacks, McGuigan and Toohey, and Pilkington scored for Bolton Wanderers. And we were 3-0 up at half time, but as I say, only 18,000 in the crowd. In the last match of the season, we thought, well, can we get anything out of that? Would it make a difference? Well, by then we'd have to score a hatful of goals, not just a few, a hatful. Well, we did. We scored 4-2, but those 2 were enough to seal any opportunity we might have of getting to third place. Al Church, McGuigan, Neil scored the goals, and we went down not with a whimper. We went down at 100 miles an hour. We were second bottom. Preston were bottom with 30 points. We were bottom with 32. 86 goals for. Len White scored his usual 29 goals. And he's in a team that's been relegated. 86 goals for, 109 against. The biggest against total in a history of Newcastle United, sad to say. So we're down now, down and dusted. Obviously, those on the board that don't like Mitten are calling for his blood, as lots of fans are by now as well. Blackpool just pipped us by 1 point, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway. With the goal average being the next thing. I mean, Blackpool had 68 for, but only 73 against, where we were 109 against. And Spurs, of course, become the champions. And I'm just looking at the other things. Altchurch again scores 10 goals. You know, the midfield's adding to the goals. So goals scoring, Mitten's marvels were still there, but goals against, we were getting well and truly that for 109 against. And just to finish off quickly, the comings and goings that season, you can imagine. Joe Butler, a fullback friend of mine from the junior team, got a contract. Colin Clish got a contract off the club, and we brought Dave Hollins in from Brighton, and Toon out. Alex Tate, my old school teacher, went to Bristol City for about 8,000. John Taylor, a lad that was brought up over from Ireland, went to Chelmsford. Ronnie Simpson went to Hibernians because at 33, Charlie Mitten thought he was finished. Well, little did he know, because he went on to play for Hibernians and win a European Cup with Celtic and get about 10 more caps for Scotland. And George Easter went to Arsenal, of course, as predicted. Jimmy Schooler went to Bradford Park Avenue, was playing manager, and Bob Gilfillan, the young Scotsman that came down, didn't to replace Mitchell, didn't last long, and went back to St Johnson. So, as you can imagine, in a season that's in full of turmoil, a turnover like that was inevitable, and rounds off the 60-61 season with a resounding thud into the second division, I'm afraid.
Well, a thoroughly depressing show today.
Absolutely.
Things can only get better, George. That's what
now, where have I heard that before?
George, as always, an absolute delight just to sit and listen. Thanks for putting in so much time and effort into the show. I know you appreciate it as well, doing it. But thanks again. Look forward to the next one, mate.
Thanks, Steve. See you soon, I hope. Okay. Bye-bye.